The ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, was made possible by Alice Paul and the National Woman's Party. It was about the discrimination on the basis of gender. They encountered unequal rights with men and women, and it took place all over the nation. If we didn't have the ERA, women wouldn't be able to vote or have any rights. There are people still fighting for equal rights, but this took place in the years of 1925, 1971 through 1983.
In 1776, Abigail Adams wrote to her husband John, "In the new code of laws, remember the ladies, and do not put such unlimited power into the hands of a husband." John Adams replied, "I cannot but laugh. Depend upon it. We know better than to repeal our masculine systems. In the new Constitution, its promised rights were fully enjoyed by most white males. Women were treated according to tradition and were denied most legal rights. In general, they could not vote, own property, keep their wages, or even have custody over their own children." The first public demand for equality arrived in 1848.
Elizabeth Stanton and Lucretia Mott, who had met as abolitionists against slavery, convened a two-day meeting of 300 women and men to call for justice for women where they barred from rights and privileges. National American Woman Suffrage Association, NAWSA, was a mainstream lobbying force off millions at every level of government. The NAWSA was a small radical group that conducted marches, picketing of the White House, and civil disobedience. They ran into stiff opposition from states' rights advocates and a number of women themselves. They believed claims that the amendment would threaten the family and require more of them than they felt their gender were capable of. Even though the 14th Amendment, Rights of Citizens, was ratified in 1868, which gave equal rights to all people, it did not give equal rights to all women.
In 1905, Alice Paul attended a New York School of Philanthropy. She explored women's rights in England for 3 years. Her education as an activist was acquired through a series of arrests, imprisonments, hunger strikes, and forced feedings. She learned how to provoke the publicity for the cause and how to exploit on that publicity. There she earned a PhD in sociology and began to put herself in the American suffrage movement. After the 19th Amendment passed in 1920, Alice Paul and the National Woman's Party focused more on the Equal Rights Amendment. This amendment would promise women protection from gender discrimination. Alice Paul wrote the Equal Rights Amendment, and it was not introduced to Congress until 1923.
The Equal Rights Amendment had 3 goals. 1. Equality of rights under law should not be denied or compressed by the U.S. or by any state on account of gender. 2. Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this piece. 3. This amendment should take action 2 years after the ratification date. No action was taken until 1966. The amendment was not given to the states until 1972. 38 states had to ratify it by 1979. Only 35 states had ratified it, just falling short of 3. The Equal Rights Amendment was ratified by 30 states in 1 year. The ratification process slowed down as anti-equal rights amendment organizations were being formed. Phyllis Schlafly's Stop Equal Rights Amendment group warned that the amendment would deny women privileges such as the ability to be supported by their husbands. Many other women turned against the women's rights movement for its sustentation of abortion, contraception, gay rights, and other problems, lessening support of the Equal Rights Amendment.
Alice Paul remained very conservative throughout her life. The Pankhursts in England had taught her some tactics and methods in her life, and no one could persuade her to depart from those methods. Her vision for women always seemed to have transcended her conservatism and harshness. Alice Paul says, "I think if we get freedom for women, then they are probably going to do a lot of things that I wish they would not do," she said shortly before her death. "But it seems to me that it is not our business to say what they should do with it. It is our business to see that they get it." Alice Paul died later that summer of 1977 from a stroke. It must have been hard for Alice Paul not to see the Equal Rights Amendment almost get passed. Alice Paul was known for using inspirational visual media to make her point.
There was no immediate change after the states did not ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Change did not occur immediately after because it was not ratified by the states. Women were disappointed that it did not get passed, but they did not do anything bad about it. After the deadlines passed, the Equal Rights Amendment was reestablished in 1982 and yearly in subsequent legislative sessions, but it deteriorated in committee. People would ask what will happen if Congress passes the Equal Rights Amendment again. A new amendment would require a 2/3 vote of Congress and 3/4 of the state legislators. The original 35 state ratifications would still count, which would mean only 3 more states would be needed. This is the 3-state strategy. After quite a few years, a lot happened with equal rights. In recent years, men have begun to fight and address inequalities and discrimination faced by women and young ladies. Some people who are still fighting for equal rights can be Bettina Hager, Donna Lent, Rowan Blanchard, Emma Watson, and Matt Damon. One of the young actresses gave a pretty amazing speech at the UN Women U.S. National Committee 2015 annual conference about gender equality. We are talking about Rowan Blanchard.
This is part of what she said. Around this age, studies show that girls lose interest in the STEM subjects, such as science, technology, engineering, and math. Sadly, those studies show that one of the reasons we back away is that girls in my age group would rather be liked than leaders. I am very hopeful that by communicating how wrong this idea is, our audience will realize that taking advantage of a complete education is the obvious thing to do in order to reach their full potential. Most 13-year-old girls aren't too bothered with solving a global crisis like gender equality. Let's be honest, when we were all teenagers, we were too concerned about growing up, which boys liked us, and making sure that we had the right fashion. We probably never thought about the subtle sexist social cues that dominated our everyday lives. Rowan, however, does.
The ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, was made possible by Alice Paul and the National Woman's Party. It was about the discrimination on the basis of gender. They encountered unequal rights with men and women, and it took place all over the nation. If we didn't have the ERA, a woman wouldn't be able to vote or have any rights. There are people still fighting for equal rights, but this took place in the years of 1925, 1971 through 1983.
We spoke with Donna Lent, the president of the National Women's Political Caucus, over the phone about some of the historical significance of the Equal Rights Amendment. Here's what she said.
So what's happened is people will argue that you don't need the Equal Rights Amendment because the 14th Amendment provides equal rights for all.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't really pass the smell test.
No.
Because if you think about it, if the 14th Amendment truly provided equal rights for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
then they wouldn't have needed the 15th Amendment,
Yeah.
which gave the vote to black men.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have needed the 19th Amendment, where they gave women the right to vote.
Yeah.
So the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment does not provide enough protection that brings about true equality.
We think that the Equal Rights Amendment should have been ratified by all the states. We also think that women should have equal rights to men and that sexism is a very big problem in this world and should be stopped. Girls should pursue the job they always dreamed of, whether it's a math major to a neuroscientist. They should get to do what they want and explore different STEM subjects.
I'd like to thank Jennifer Burr for helping out with this project, and our teacher, Mr. Hurd, for showing us how to have good communication skills. We would like to give out a special thank you to Donna Lent and Alexa DeJesus for helping go above and beyond our original thought.